This is my current desk setup, and while it has served me well throughout the years, it is time to move to a smaller version of this and possibly a little bit fancier. So today, let's build just that. Now, there's a lot of things that I really like about this desk, including this shelf that holds my monitor and has some storage underneath. It also has this shelf that I made specifically for the size of my computer and that prevents all the cables from getting pulled when the desk goes up and down. Oh wait, did I forget to mention that this is a stand-up desk? Yeah, unfortunately I am fully sold on the stand-up desk situation. So how about we build an even better one? I mean, surely nothing can go wrong, right? If you watched my previous video, then you know that I'm moving into a new space and that I'm building all the furniture that I need. And because I'm moving into an apartment, there's only one corner that I can use for my desk setup, which honestly made figuring out the dimensions of the desktop way easier. If you've been following along for a little bit, and you definitely should, you also might realize that this is probably the last project that you'll see in this current shop. And while it's a little bit sad, I'm very happy that my last project is actually my first project that I made in this shop, which was my original desktop. I mean, how about that for a full circle moment? On a happier note, I do have some exciting news about my new shop space. So if you want to learn more about that in my next video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. So far in the project, I've used my track saw to break my plywood into all the pieces I will need to build the desk and the shelves. Now on this project, I've decided to try something new. Because in addition to my desk being a functional space, I also want it to look really good, so it makes me want to work there a little bit more. And because I'm making it myself, I also want it to be very unique, so I thought of using contrasting wood for this project. And I've done projects with contrasting wood before, for example, cutting boards made out of walnut and maple, but never on that scale. I've also decided to use a different combo of wood that I've never used before, which is white oak and walnut. You see, I was at a restaurant that was, I don't mean to brag, but a little bit fancy a few months ago. And all their cabinetry and bar top was a mix of white oak and walnut, and it looked really classy. So I thought I really need to try that on one of my projects. But before doing that on a client piece, I really want to test it myself and see how it's going to look like. So off we were on this walnut white oak experiment. What do you think it's going to look like? After cutting all my plywood to size, it was time to cut my walnut edge banding. Thankfully, I had this thick 1.5 inch piece of walnut left over from another project. It had some very interesting grain, so I thought it would make for great edge banding. And to do that, I just used a mix of my bandsaw and my planer to get everything to the same thickness. I then ripped the bands to width on the table saw, which apparently was clogged with plywood dust. Once I had all my edge banding cut to size, it was time to apply it on the edge of each piece of plywood I would be using. Just like this. Now, in past projects, I have used iron-on edge banding, which is arguably a quicker and easier way to get your plywood edges covered. The problem with iron-on is that the veneer is so thin that you can't really apply any edge profile to your pieces. And in that project, I wanted to experiment with having a chamfer running all around the table and the shelves. I also find solid wood edge banding to be more forgiving to dings and dents, and I really want this desk to be durable as I'm going to be using it every day. So off we were, gluing all this edge banding on using a mix of blue tape and clamps. I actually found this to be a pretty meditative process, especially with the smaller pieces. And getting everything to fit nice and tight around the periphery of the desk was very satisfying. After the glue had dried, it was time to cut all the edge banding to length, but also make it flush with the top of the plywood as I cut all the edge banding a little bit oversized. And to do that, let me introduce you to my new favorite tool in the shop. I have been wanting a block plane from Veritas for what must be years, and I finally pulled the trigger. After just one quick sharpening, it was perfect right out of the box. And it came right in time for me to test it on all this edge banding. I mean, look at those curves. Okay, just one more shot of this. Now that all my shelf pieces were ready, it was time to add the joinery. And for this, I'll be using the domino in a pretty weird way. Because instead of referencing the front edge of the piece as usual, I'm going to be using the edge of the edge bending to drill my mortises. But hopefully it'll make more sense in a second. What I'm doing here is marking a reference line at the center of the shelf. All I need to do is offset this line by 10 millimeters, and my mortise should be right in the middle of the shelf. That is, of course, unless I reference the wrong side of the line. Just like that. But that's a problem to fix later. Now this is what it's supposed to look like. I did that for all the shelf dividers and made sure to drill all the way through the piece where two shelves are going to meet in the middle. And this is why I referenced the edge of the edge bending, because then it could all align with a slight offset, which I think makes for a more interesting look. Weirdly, I really thought that I could get away with just one domino per shelf, but obviously that was not enough, so I just added a second one. And to do that, I actually referenced the edge of the first domino to make sure that everything was spaced exactly the same. Now on to fixing my little mistake. I found a piece of scrap that was almost the same thickness as the domino and brought it down to the 8mm that each domino is. I then ripped it to size and added a round over to match the shape of a real domino. And just like that, we had fixed our mistake. This actually got me inspired to try this custom domino on other projects. Like, why not use dominoes as opposed to round plugs for decorative accents? I'll save you from watching this, but I did sand every piece thoroughly to make the edge bending perfectly flush with the plywood. And as I mentioned before, I want to add a chamfer to my edge bending. Of course, I could use a router bit, and it probably would be faster and more accurate. But I just want to spend more quality time with my new plane. I mean, can you blame me? Then it was on to pre-finishing. And here's a sneak peek of our domino fix from earlier. I recently found that pre-finishing everything before assembly made for a cleaner and quicker glue up. And yes, it took me a long time to realize that, but what can I say, I'm a slow learner. Now it was time to assemble all the shelves. I really took my time here and did everything in pre-assemblies that could be put together later. Seeing how everything lined up with the edge profile looked very promising. I also mentioned that where the shelves meet in the middle, I created some extra long dominoes to span both shelves and the divider at the same time. Those were a little bit harder to get in since they were very snug, but definitely worth the hassle. And then it was time to clamp it all together. Now, you know when they say don't over clamp things? Well, I think that's what they mean. I was pretty confused here because I thought that my dominoes broke, but what really happened is that the plywood delaminated in the center. Thankfully, that was a really easy fix as I just had to add glue and clamp it all back together. I definitely didn't clamp it as hard the second time and added an insurance policy of some heavy walnut to keep everything flat. The last building step here was to add dominoes to add the top to the shelves. And let me tell you, good thing that I had some extra custom made dominoes here because I messed up the setting of my domino and drilled this mortise way too high. Once again, walnut domino to the rescue. I then made sure to adjust my domino fence setting to the thickness of my edge banding. Now that is more like it. For the centerpieces, I just marked the location of the divider and drilled my dominoes the same way. And frankly, to my big surprise, everything lined up just right. A little bit of convincing and a few clamps later, and everything was finally ready. And here's a preview of the final result. The shelf would just sit at the back of the desk to hold my monitors and have some extra storage. But obviously, you might have noticed that this desk is missing a base. And that's where our dear friends at Flexispot come into play. The base on my original desk was a Flexispot E7 and I truly loved it. So when they reached out and offered to send me their E6 base for this video, I couldn't be happier. And besides being super easy to assemble and high quality, it has some functionalities that I really like. For example, it has two motors making it very quiet and stable when going up and down. It also has 4 programmable settings that you can set up in case you have different people using the same desk. And as a safety bonus added, it has a collision detection function where it will come down if it comes in contact with something. And believe me, that has come in handy a few times for me. If you're interested in this desk space, check the link in the description. So finally, what do you think of this desk? I really like the walnut and white oak combination, and I think I'm going to play more with it in future projects. But let me know in the comments what you would have done differently. Thank you all for watching, and see you in the next one.